Hi, a warm welcome back. If you're a first-time viewer of this vlog, then where have you been? My name's Gerry and I'm part of the FPM and Thornfields Practice Management Advisory team. And this is one of a series of blogs, the purpose of which is to provide bite-sized hints and food for thought for operational practice managers. And today's session is entitled Juggling Priorities and Being a Well-Led Practice. And I anticipate the vlog will take about 10 minutes to view. A daily challenge for all practice managers is not only to prioritise what they need to do, but have the flexibility to reprioritise in response to changes in circumstances. There's obviously no shortage of competing demands on the time of a practice manager. And this can include elements such as the need to manage finance, the need to manage safety, the need to manage people, and the need to manage facilities, but also the need to get the balance right between clinical capacity and meeting patient demand. And most important of all is probably the need to ensure that your practice stays compliant with the needs of the regulator. So the regulator for primary care is the Care Quality Commission. Add all that workload up and it probably comes to more than a 24/7 commitment. So the need to plan is obviously key, because as we all know, if we don't set and stick to our own set of priorities, then we run the risk of having our priorities superseded and hijacked by the priorities of others. So for the rest of this vlog, I'm going to focus on the need to stay compliant with the needs of the Care Quality Commission. In particular, the needs to be able to demonstrate that you are running a well-led practice. CQC inspectors see leadership as incredibly important in delivering a well-led service. This means them seeing real evidence that a practice has some of the following: robust governance, proactive support, active supervision, and ongoing staff development. By having these structures and processes in place, a practice is ensuring that all its team contributes to the delivery of a high quality service, one where patient feedback is not only collated but also acted upon, and where complaints and serious incidents are dealt with appropriately and changes made accordingly. In summary, what I'm describing is a practice where the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. The key ingredient in that being the case are three things for me. These being optimising the abilities of the practice and the skills at the disposal of the practice manager, making sure that it's a well-motivated management team and practice team. And what I mean by motivation is having some insight into what makes your team tick, and also engendering a very positive attitude. And what I'm going to talk about now is how to juggle those three priorities. And by juggling those three priorities, make sure all three stay in the air at the same time. Firstly, I'm going to focus on ability. And what I mean by ability is, do you have a clear understanding of the capability of your team? Have you taken some stock of any training needs that there may be? So have you identified the present level of skills and the needed level of skills and addressed any gap between the two? A helpful mnemonic in managing this process is MAST, M-A-S-T, which stands for mandatory and statutory training, where statutory is that which is required legally, and in the main that means health and safety training. And mandatory means that which isn't a legal requirement, but it's a requirement to make that you need to fulfil to stay compliant with any contracts you may be involved with, or to adhere to best practice, or to deliver on the requirements of the primary care regulator, CQC. The second ingredient in being well led, I'm suggesting, is motivation. And motivation affects how hard a person works and how productive they are. And for me, it drives behaviour and can be summarised by a simple mnemonic, WIIFM, which stands for what's in it for me. Yeah? And here's a very simple anecdote that I'm using to illustrate the difference that motivation can make. It's slightly dated in that it refers back to the 1960s, but I think the message it gives is timeless nonetheless. It recalls a time when the then American president, President Kennedy, was touring the NASA moonshot facility in Cape Canaveral. During his walkabout, he met a man in overalls and he asked the man, "What do you do here?" To which the man replied, "I'm earning a living." Later on in his journey, President Kennedy met another man. He asked him the same question and the man's reply was, "I'm clearing away the garbage." Finally, the American president came across a third man who was also in overalls but was enthusiastically sweeping the floor. And he asked him, what did he do? And with a big smile, this man's reply was, "I'm helping to put a man on the moon, Mr. President." So there you have a real example of someone who's keeping his eye on the prize and not getting diverted by the mundane. So the question of yourselves is, how do you ensure that your practice team is as motivated as that third person in the example? The final ingredient in being well led is attitude. And by that I mean the predisposition or tendency of your team. Is it best categorised as being positive or negative? It can't be a coincidence that if we were to number every letter in the alphabet, A being number 1 to Z being 26, that if we add up the letters in attitude, it comes to 100, whereas other seemingly meaningful words such as knowledge and hard work only add up to something in the order of 96 or 98. So what I'm suggesting is that attitude is incredibly important and is incredibly pervasive in making sure that your team deliver and that the team is well led. Attitudes are contagious, and the question of yourselves is the attitude that prevails in your team the kind of attitude you would want others to catch? So here's 3 simple suggestions for promoting a positive attitude in your team. First, be optimistic. Ensure your glass is half full and not half empty. So always want to be part of the solution rather than be a passive part of the problem. Be a problem solver. See everything as an opportunity and not necessarily a barrier. So be positive about how challenges present themselves. And third thing is, maintain a perspective. Always see things in the context of the bigger picture and don't get bogged down in the mundane detail of the day-to-day. So there we have it. Manage the ability and influence the motivation and attitude of your team, and the odds are that will evidence a well-led practice. I hope you found this helpful. Please share any feedback you may have, and if you feel any of the services that either First Practice Management or Thornfields have to offer could help your practice, then feel free to get in touch. Thanks for watching, and for now, it's goodbye from me.